r/NoSleep. Hosted by you/Carbodex. Prophet of Nightmares. The night the car hit me, I was walking home from the diner, my thoughts echoing with loneliness and the shattering glass of shattered dreams. I woke up in a hospital bed, wreathed in a silence so thick it felt like I was drowning. From that moment on, I started seeing things in my sleep. Dreams, but not any ordinary dreams, visions of crimes that hadn't happened yet. And every time I woke up, I felt like I was surfacing from an abyssal trench, gasping for air in the bright white of hospital linens. Each dream was a chiaroscuro of terror. The scenes played out in murky colors, the emotions ran high in shades of crimson and obsidian. Violent acts would unfold in a nauseating spectacle, and I was the unwilling witness. A woman with cascading raven black hair being chased in a dark alley, a convenience store clerk about to be robbed at gunpoint, a hit and run just around the corner from my home. Each vision was more vivid and terrifying than the last. At first, I thought these nightmares were side effects of the medications they were pumping into my veins. But the dreams didn't stop when I was discharged. I took my fragmented sleep and my shattered sanity home, trying to piece myself back together in the echoing silence of my apartment. I told my therapist about the dreams. Her brows knitted in concern. She suggested they were a subconscious manifestation of my trauma, assuring me they would cease with time. But they didn't. They got worse. The crimes I saw began materializing in the real world. News headlines echoed my nightmares, word for word, scene for scene. First, it was the woman from the alley, her photo flashing on the evening news. Local woman found dead in downtown alley, police suspect foul play. A week later, it was the convenience store clerk, his store robbed, his life taken. I tried to warn people, to prevent these crimes before they happened. But who would believe a trauma victim claiming he saw future crimes in his dreams? I was laughed out of the police station, my pleas for understanding met with smirking disbelief. My therapist suggested stronger medication. My friends began to distance themselves. I was alone, carrying a terrifying secret. One evening, as I sat alone in my apartment, bathed in the sickly glow of the TV, I fell asleep. This time, the dream was different. It was vivid, more real than any before. I saw a small boy with a shock of messy brown hair playing in a park under the watchful eyes of his mother. I could see her face clearly. Emily, my high school sweetheart. I watched in paralyzing fear as a man approached them. His face was obscured, but I could sense his menacing intent. The sound of my own horrified gasp jolted me awake. Sweat trickled down my forehead as I fumbled for my phone. The clock read 3:13 a.m., mocking me with its digital glare. Emily wouldn't believe me, she had not since we parted ways years ago, but I had to try. I dialed her number, my heart pounding in sync with each pulse of the dial tone. She answered on the third ring, her voice groggy and laced with annoyance. I told her about the dream, the man in the park, the danger looming over her and her son. The silence on the other end was worse than any verbal scorn. Then, without a word, she ended the call. My heart sank, but there was nothing more I could do. As dawn broke, I prayed to whatever God would listen that this one dream, at least, would not come true. The days that followed were a lesson in hope and despair, alternating in such cruel intensity that I found it hard to breathe. I tried to convince myself it was just a dream, a delusion, but my faith in that lie faltered with each tick of the clock. I was a prisoner to time, to the horrible visions etched into my psyche, to the reality I had no power to change. One night, plagued by restlessness, I decided to visit the park for my dream. The crescent moon cast a gloomy glow over the deserted playground. I shivered, pulling my coat tighter, each rustle of the wind setting my nerves on edge. I approached the bench from my vision, each footstep feeling like a journey into the labyrinth of my worst fears. Suddenly, my phone buzzed, a shrill disturbance in the tranquility of the night. I glanced at the caller ID. Emily. My blood froze. Had the nightmare come true? With trembling hands, I answered. But instead of the anticipated hysteria, I was met with a shocked silence. Then, Emily's voice, barely a whisper, drifted over the line. How did you know? The world around me started spinning. I clutched the phone tighter as I asked her what happened. She told me that a man had approached them in the park, just as I had said. But, remembering my call, she had grabbed her son and fled before anything could happen. The police had later found the man, a known predator, lurking around the playground. My warning had saved them. The revelation hit me like a freight train, a brutal acknowledgement of my terrifying ability. I was seeing the future in my dreams, but now, with the right actions, I had the power to change it. For the next few weeks, I lived in a state of hypervigilance. I began jotting down every detail of my nightmares, every face, every location, every act of violence that was yet to be committed. I sent anonymous tips to the police, made frantic calls to potential victims, anything to prevent the nightmares from becoming reality. But with each night that passed, I was spiraling further into despair. My nights were a battlefield, my dreams the enemy. My waking hours were consumed by paranoia, each moment ticking away with the weight of impending doom. My health deteriorated, the gauntness of my face a stark reflection of the terror etched on my soul. I was losing myself, one nightmare at a time. But then, the dreams changed. One night, instead of a series of disconnected crimes, I saw one continuous narrative. It began with a deserted street, the buildings eerily similar to those in my neighborhood. A car pulled up, the driver hidden by the shadows. Out stepped a girl, her bright red hair a stark contrast against the gloom. I recognized her as my neighbor, Lily, always cheerful and full of life. In the dream, she walked towards her building, unaware of the figure following her. Panic surged through me as I watched the scene unfold. I was once again the helpless observer, unable to alter the course of events. As the figure lunged at Lily, I woke up, my screams echoing in the silent room. In the harsh light of dawn, I found myself at a crossroads. My responsibility was clear. I had to warn Lily, but after Emily, could I convince someone again? Would Lily believe my crazy story? I had no choice. I couldn't just stand by and let another nightmare come true. Battling my self-doubt, I decided to approach Lily. She was surprised to see me at her doorstep, a living ghost from next door she barely knew. My tongue felt heavy as I tried to explain, my words sounding ridiculous to my own ears. But I pushed through, my determination fueled by the vivid image of her terror-stricken face from my dream. Her reaction was one I had expected yet feared. Disbelief painted over her features, her eyes narrowed with suspicion and perhaps a hint of fear. I couldn't blame her. How could she believe such an outrageous claim from a stranger? And yet, I pleaded with her, desperation making my voice quaver. But she politely shut the door on my face, leaving me alone with my failure. The next few days were agonizing. Each time I saw Lily leaving the house, a pang of dread stabbed my heart. The world felt out of focus, time lost its meaning. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't breathe without the specter of the nightmare looming over me. Then, one night, it happened. Lily didn't come home. Her apartment remained dark, and fear knotted in my stomach. I rushed to the police, my frantic words forming a garbled plea for help. The police didn't believe me at first, attributing my terror to anxiety and stress. But the next morning, Lily was officially declared missing. The disbelief in the officers' eyes turned into shock, then a grim determination as they began their search. Days turned into a nightmarish blur. The entire neighborhood was in an uproar, and the police were searching every corner, every alley. The dreams had stopped, and for once, I wished they would come back, give me a clue, a way to find Lily. But I was left in the dark, a spectator in my own life. Then, one night, out of nowhere, a new vision flashed before my eyes. I was standing in an old warehouse, damp and dilapidated. There, on the cold concrete floor, lay Lily, unconscious, her red hair spread around her like a halo. I woke up, gasping, my heart pounding in my chest. This was it. This was where she was. With renewed vigor, I ran to the police station, detailing my dream. The officers exchanged skeptical glances but decided to entertain my claim, desperate for any leads. They found the warehouse, just as I had described, in an isolated part of town. Inside, they found Lily, unconscious but alive, just as I had seen. The relief that washed over me was indescribable. Lily was safe, and the predator was soon apprehended. But with that relief came a chilling realization: the dreams, the nightmares, they were a part of me. A terrible gift, a morbid legacy. From that day forward, I became a reluctant sentinel, a silent guardian. Each night, I would descend into my own personal hell, watching horrors unfold before my eyes, horrors that were yet to come. But in the face of such terror, I found purpose. I was saving lives, altering destinies. It was a burden, yes, but one I was willing to bear. As the sun set, I knew the nightmares awaited. Yet, I welcomed sleep, ready to face the specters of the night. They were my demons, my saviors, my reality. And as I closed my eyes, I realized this was my life now, a life lived in the shadows of the future, forever poised on the edge of horror and hope. After all, we're all prisoners of our own minds. But only some of us have the key.